Hello, I'm Dr. Piyush Bajpai. Uh, the session of translational science and in breast cancer. So my thanks to organizers for making me a part of this. The abstract given to me, the topic is a population-based study of genes previously implicated in breast cancer. This was published in NEJM by Chanling Hu et al. This was a study from Mayo Clinic. And the background is that the prevalence of germline variants is usually stated between 7 to 10%. But this is what we know is in the high risk population. NCCN and other organizations have made testing criteria based on risk stratification in both affected and unaffected individuals. Population-based estimates of the risk of breast cancer associated with germline mutation are critical for risk assessment and management. Now, this particular registry or consortium, which is Carriers, this is a US-based consortium and was used to estimate prevalence and risk of breast cancer-related pathogenic variants in breast cancer related genes in US general population. This study was conducted at and coordinated by Mayo Clinic. So this was basically a population-based study of genes implicated in breast cancer, and it was a case-control study in Carriers Consortium, which had around 17 studies. They identified nearly 64,791 ladies, out of which nearly 32,247 had a history of breast cancer. They were majorly retrospective, except for one prospective study. And there were nearly 32,544 unaffected ladies who were undergoing studies for various women health initiative like studies. So what was studied was to identify pathogenic variants in 12 established and 16 candidate breast cancer predisposition genes. These genes were studied by sequencing and by NGS methodology. So looking at the results, nearly 62 was the age of patients having breast cancer, and 61 was the median age in controls. Well, if you look at any family history, in case that is the patients with breast cancer, there was no family history in 79% of the patients. And if you look at controls, there was no family history in 85% of the patients. There was no family history of breast or of ovarian cancer in 96% and 96% likewise in controls as well. If you look at the sort of profile that the patient with breast cancer actually developed, so if you look at it, 82% of the ladies who had breast cancer actually had ER positive breast cancer, and likewise HER2/neu was around 16%, quite similar to the data that we see. Triple negative breast cancer was around 11%. So nearly 64,791 ladies taken into this study with these particular genes were studied. As you can see on the left, the one encircled in red lines are actually the genes which are 12 genes which are established for breast cancer, and 16 other candidate breast cancer predisposition genes were studied. What came out that prevalence of pathogenic variants in 12 genes, it was 5.03% in women with breast cancer and nearly 1.63% in unaffected ladies. Amongst these genes, BRCA1 and BRCA2, the odds ratio for BRCA1 was the highest, 7.62, and BRCA2, it was 5.23. The prevalence and risk estimates in US population, this can inform screening and clinical management, and this was the importance of the study. Pathogenic variants in the 16 candidate genes, what you see the rest of it, showed no association with the risk. Pathogenic variants in PALB2 associated with moderate risk with a odds ratio of nearly 3.82. And we know that PALB2 has a relatively moderate risk. BARD1 and RAD51 genes were actually associated with more of TNBC. Other genes like ATM, CHEK2, and BRCA2 were the most common genes which were found in the unaffected population or the normal population. And this was basically the absolute risk of breast cancer development. So we can see that as compared to this delta, as we can see, is the largest in BRCA1 with the highest chances of developing breast cancer, and it keeps on peaking. Whereas with ATM, it is not so much. Likewise, for CHEK2 and PALB2, there is almost a moderate risk. The conclusions by the author were that this study provides estimates of prevalence and risk of breast cancer associated with pathogenic variants in known breast cancer predisposition genes in the US population. Now, 5% of cancer would be germline, and this is what we have an idea that already we quote most of the times. 5% of the cancers would be germline came in this study. This is important for counseling normal population by risk stratification during the pre-test counseling. Triple negative breast cancer was having more of BRCA1 and 2 and PALB2. ATM, CHEK2 and BRCA2 were more of ER positive disease patterns. BARD1 and RAD51 genes had weak associations overall, but moderate risk of ER negative breast cancer. General population testing was questioned by the author because of low prevalence of BRCA1 and 2 in the general population. Genes like NBN, BRIP1 and RECTL had no associations in population-based study. The estimates can inform cancer testing and screening and improve clinical management strategies in women in general population with inherited pathogenic variants in these genes. So these were the conclusions by the author. My take is our pre-test counseling is basically based on BRCA1 and 2 genes. The preventive measures for patients and population, now what we explain is based on the BRCA1 and 2 genes. Should it be different for every gene pattern or risk profile? Because it would be different. Other genes on the so-called multi-gene panel that we have now started most of the time using, we really do not know what to do either therapeutically or through the preventive measure. More so because of a different socio-cultural background that we have and uncertainty that they will eventually, that cancer would eventually develop. Only guide for now, when we get such results is NCCN. Should we restrict ourselves to testing BRCA1 and 2 comprehensively? Should we have complete knowledge of, doing MLPA, which adds on to the expense and not to the multi-gene panel? Or probably should our panel be relatively restricted? Because as we are seeing that that population, the rest of the 16 genes had no correlation. So should we further tailor our panel? Now, second abstract was mutation in BRCA1 and 2 and other panel genes in patient with metastatic breast cancer, association with patients and disease characteristics and effect on prognosis. Author was Dr. Peter A. Fasching. This was published in JCO. So the background is that among patients with metastatic breast cancer, the frequency of germline mutation in cancer susceptibility genes and clinical relevance of these mutations are unclear. So in this study, a prospective cohort of patients with MBC was used to determine mutation rates for breast cancer predisposition genes to evaluate the clinical characteristic of patients with mutation and to assess the influence of mutation on patient outcome. So design of the study, this was a study in Germany where nearly 2,595 patients with metastatic breast cancer got enrolled in prospective pregnant registry. Here, the mutations were evaluated and the tumor profile was correlated with. Also, there was an evaluation of progression-free and overall survival. This is the consort diagram, and as you can see that nearly 2,595 patients were actually having complete genotype information. So these all patients were studied, and of course there was some exclusions where clinical correlate with the tumor characteristics were to be studied with. Now, looking at the results, basically the age of diagnosis with BRCA1 and 2, as we can see, is relatively younger over here. 45 is the age with the standard deviation of 11.2. And if we look at the type of characteristics, it's luminal A actually in BRCA1 and 2, which is predominating, 35% nearly. Likewise, in luminal B is also predominant. Triple negative probably is not so dominant, but 29% in BRCA1 and 2. So, likewise in other HRD mutation also there is predominant of luminal A. Now coming to the site or organ of involvement, if you look at the BRCA1 and 2 and also the other HRD gene or other DNA repair gene, there is a lot of involvement of the brain. Likewise, also for the visceral metastasis, there is relatively more involvement. If we look at the first line relative or history, there is a history present actually in nearly 34% of the patients with BRCA1 and 2 and other HRD gene, nearly 28%. Likewise, for the first line relative for ovarian cancer, there is a significant difference between non-mutation carriers and mutation carriers in terms of taking a history. So talking about the frequency of germline mutations, well, BRCA2 came out to be the most common one, 2.9%, and then was CHEK2 mutation, and then was the BRCA1 mutation. So what they found that in the registry, the germline mutations in breast cancer predisposition genes compared with the patient with non-metastatic invasive breast cancer in MCBS, that is the Mayo Cancer breast cancer registry, they actually compared with 10.4% was the prevalence versus 6.6%. There was no difference in the PFS and overall survival. So the BRCA1 and 2 mutation was actually having quite similar PFS in a patient with the mutation versus patient not having mutation. Likewise, was the same thing with HRD mutations as well. Concerning the prevalence of germline mutation in breast cancer susceptibility genes, there was no subgroup with a mutation frequency in BRCA1 and 2 under 3%, and in all genes with a mutation frequency under 10%. These findings suggest that germline genetic testing may be appropriate for all patients with metastatic breast cancer, irrespective of age or family history. So the conclusion by authors were that higher frequency of germline mutation in MBC compared with non-metastatic breast cancer suggests that mutation in specific genes may promote progression from early to metastatic breast cancer, and that multi-gene panel should be considered in all patients with MBC to identify patients and family members who may benefit from targeted therapy and cascade testing respectively. In addition, significant heterogeneity in tumor characteristics across genes without a significant effect on overall survival confirms the role of germline mutations in driving specific biological subtypes of breast cancer. But the point to be noted here is that the overall survival, though same, a lot of patients were actually ER positive, and the use of PARP inhibitors probably would have been restricted. Highlights the challenges, and likewise for platinums as well, highlights the challenges for extending novel targeted therapies such as PARP inhibitor beyond the BRCA1 and 2 carriers, and has significant implications on the design of future clinical trials. So my take was that BRCA1 and 2 in metastatic breast cancer are important therapeutically, and we are definitely doing this. We also tend to go overboard to see any HRR sort of genes, but we really do not know how to, when we get the response, how to tackle with such results. HRD, not yet we have started. In practice, family history would always play an important role in clinical decision for sending germline mutations, and that we saw that family history was making an important statistical contribution there, especially in non-TNBC subtypes, but usually happens in later lines of therapy, and where would PARP inhibitors be efficacious in later lines. So take-home messages from these two abstracts is that guidelines and data on genetic testing in our scenario is required for such decisions. Data collection is feasible by multicentric collaborative efforts, as recently done by multicentric efforts in CA ovary. Genetic counseling pre and post test is going to be getting exhaustive in metastatic breast cancer, risk stratified approach to send germline mutation would hold good, especially in non-TNBC as well. Thank you.